and magic to do just for you. Welcome to Studio Tenn Talks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have an audience. Listen to that. Woo. Oh, thank you so much. So we have an audience. Thank you so much. I am Patrick Cassidy. This is Studio Tenn. This is Studio Tenn Talks. I am the artistic director, and welcome. We are in the Franklin Theater. It is absolutely beautiful. We have so many great people here today. I'm so excited. And tonight we do not have our normal musical director, Patrick Thomas. He was on his bachelor party weekend. So but he sends his love. I spoke to him, and he will be back next week. And it's been an incredible week. I want to thank last week. We had a little mix up and stuff, and I didn't get a chance to thank our sponsors. You know, we get sponsors for every one of these shows on Monday night, and it's incredibly generous people that give a sponsorship for us to do the show. And last week we had Greg Flittner and Nancy Smith Flittner. They were just incredible people, and I thank them so much for the sponsorship, as I do every week with everybody doing that. It is just so great to be here. And this show is a very special show tonight. And as you know, and as you saw in the opening, we've had some incredible guests and stars and people of the theater and Tony Award winners, all of it on the show. But tonight, I have the people that run the arts here in Middle Tennessee. All of the people that are part of, you know, running different companies. And I'm the artistic director for Studio Tenn, and I have an incredible 5 incredible guests tonight to join me. And I'm going to introduce them now. And we have a panel talk, a theater panel talk about the theater tonight. So I'm going to just introduce them all, and then I'm going to have William bring them all in. And the first one is Paul Vasterling, and he is with the Nashville Ballet. He is the artistic director there. Drew Ogle, who is the executive director of the Nashville Rep. Jennifer Turner, who is the CEO of Tennessee Performing Arts Center, TPAC. Denice Hicks, artistic director of Nashville Shakes. And Ernie Nolan, executive director for Nashville Children's Theater. Please give them a big welcome. Here they come. What actors need jobs? These are the people to talk to. Guys, welcome. It's so great to see all of you. How by the way, how about hearing like an audience? Pretty cool, right?
I know.
Crazy.
Yeah, I've said this many times since we came into the Franklin Theater a few months ago, and the first time I walked in here, cried, and then when people slowly started coming in the house and hearing that applause and hear laughter and hear, it's just emotional, and I know you guys all feel it as well. So anyway, welcome tonight. Tonight's, as I said, a really special show, and I want it to really be all of us just throwing ourselves into what we've been through, our ideas about going forward. And I kind of like told everybody that we would all sort of, you know, submit some questions to the panel and talk about it. So I figured maybe I'll jump in and let you guys sort of chime in. Here we go. Based on everything that has happened in the past year, the pandemic, the death of George Floyd, the election, the insurrection on January 6th, how does all of that affect us coming back into the theater?
Oh, I'll go. So it was important to us at the Rep to use this downtime for production to really dig in and ask who we are and how we want to serve this community that we love so much. And so we've done a couple of very significant things around that. One is just really digging into, as you alluded to, the racial equity piece. And we've conducted a racial equity audit, and we're asking ourselves how we need to improve in order to really reflect and serve the community that we love. And then the other one is we've been doing some deep strategic planning work. So between these two things, I aim for Nashville Rep to return not as a theater organization, but as a civic organization with theater at its core.
That's great. That's great. Comments? Boy, this is a quiet group. Please.
Well,
jump
no,
in.
I mean,
It's a deep question. I mean, I think for me, what is most important? All of this is really, really put a fine point on asking myself personally, asking organizationally, what is most important to us. And I think Drew was alluding to that as well. You really got a chance to step back and look at ourselves and see ourselves differently and see ourselves through a different lens. And the pandemic, in some ways made us do that, but it also gave us the opportunity to see ourselves in kind of maybe how other people see us sometimes, and to help us reevaluate. So that's what we've been doing.
Yeah.
Yes, it's been an opportunity of great reflection for all of us. And I'm very curious to see what stories come out of this pandemic, because there are so many. There's the reconnection. Oh, Ernie, did I take your question?
not a question, but share. I have Post-its of all my questions.
I just think, so many people have found joy in the ability to slow down and reconnect with people they love. But then there's been this tremendous loss, of life, this loss of our society and the things that we enjoy. And I know all of us deeply feel the loss of live performance and using the arts to connect with one another. So I'm curious how our artists are going to write this time in history. That is something I look forward to, but it might be difficult for us to relive some of those moments.
And I want to just say seeing all of you guys like this. I mean, we were doing these Monday Zoom calls with all of us, sort of asking the questions of, okay, what are we going to do? What did you hear? What did Equity say? I mean, all of these different things. And for me personally, sort of being the new member here in Tennessee and the new member of this group, what an extraordinary thing that I got to know all you guys, that we're here doing this. I am so grateful for that. And if it's one of the things because of COVID that happened, that I know Ernie and call Ernie, and I know Drew and Paul and Denice and you, Jennifer, and I get to make those phone calls and ask for favors. That's a blessing, a big blessing for me personally.
Well, and I think Jennifer said it in everybody. I mean, the world didn't stop while we were all at home. I mean, the world continued. It's just we haven't been able to be with other people like we used to in order to process those things. And so theater and the arts are going to do that. I mean, maybe if you went to the Black Lives Matter march, or maybe if you went to another march, you were able to feel some sort of sense of community, but time passed on. I mean, events happened. I mean, lives were lost and insurrection happened. And so what's interesting is coming out of this, there's an incredible amount of processing that we're all going to need to feel. And so part of mine was really, what are the kind of stories that we feel people need coming out of this? Like, I think there's an amazing amount of celebration, and I think an amazing amount of joy. But I think at the same time, what are ways in which we can come together as a community? And I think that's what the arts do. We offer these communal moments for us all to come together to process both what we see on stage and where we are in a moment. I mean, months before COVID, when we were producing Return to Sender, and literally children were being sent to cages, and the play was about children in cages, and Denice was a part of that production. I mean, it was amazing to think in that moment. It was kind of like the closest to like a Greek theater experience I've ever been to, like literally theater processing what was going on in the moment. But I just wonder how much we feel that now, and how stories we've loved in the past even mean something different now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to add to that, Ernie. You alluded to the fact that artists have a very special role to play in the healing of our community. But this has been an exceptionally difficult year for our industry, and our artists need healing as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to ask the group what it is that you're doing to help our artists to heal from this time.
Well, creating jobs. I mean, they need to work. I was just having a a virtual conversation with some friends a few minutes ago, actually, and we were talking about how we all have worked through our grief at different times in our lives through our work. And I think to some, to what I call civilians, the way that artists can work that way can look like we're workaholics or something. But what I really have a lot of faith in is that our work heals us and therefore heals the community. It is time. People want to gather again.
Mhm.
And it's our responsibility to give them really meaningful ways to gather. So the stories, of course, we tell Shakespeare. This year we are incorporating August Wilson into our summer festival because that is a voice that I feel like is so important for everyone to hear right now.
It needs to be heard.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, he is. You know, the plays he wrote take place in very specific times in our history for a reason. History tells us how we got to where we are, and motivates us, and inspires us then to move forward.
It's great, great. Who has a question for another question for the panel?
Ernie, what's your next question?
I'm excited. What is something from this COVID time that everyone hopes to take with them going forward?
Ernie!
Well, I hope everybody remembers how important
they got the
it is to watch
memos.
your friends.
Well, then,
Watch your
Jennifer, then why don't you start off with some sort of answer to that?
Well, I think the balance that we've learned is something. I think that we're going to try and incorporate some remote work opportunities so that we can be more productive when we travel, that we can still have Zoom meetings so that people who are in different spots can still gather. We've gotten great attendance at our board and committee meetings. I don't know if you all have as well, but I think using technology, I'm sure we're going to be all thrilled to be off Zoom as much as we have been. But I think that we've learned a lot about technology and the way that it can connect us when we're not in the same space. We're going to do everything we can to be in the same space. But I think that we're fortunate that we have been able to have these connection points. And, you know, we did the big pivot to virtual for all of our education programs, and our outreach has been incredible. We've been hitting numbers that are fantastic, and we reached 17 more counties in Tennessee than we usually reach. So, you know, I think we're going to try to figure out how to keep that and still be able to, you know, deliver quality programs, but do it in a way where it can reach people that normally can't get to our venue.
Yeah, you know, Jennifer, that's a great point, because, you know, for example, this show. I mean, I know once we go back to live performance, you know, we're not going to be able to do this every week, but I think we're going to still keep it hanging around like once a month or maybe once every 3 months. But it's been such an important and pivotal part about us sort of, you know, getting other people's comments, putting actors on here, talking about it, getting people to perform. You know, we've had people here to do the pre-show and giving actors a chance to sing again on a stage. And so I don't want to completely throw this part of what we've learned during the pandemic and the fact that I know how to do now Zoom. Thank God. I don't want to throw that completely away.
I don't know, though. I think that one of the things that sometimes we take for granted is that there really is no substitute for live performance. Mm-hmm. And we've done a lot of virtual work this year, and we're very proud of the virtual work and the people that we've reached doing it. But we're also asking ourselves, how do we reach live audiences outside of the four walls of the venue?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely going out into the communities that we serve. That's a big focus for us moving forward as well.
Yeah, one of the things that we've talked about a lot is figuring, because of digital, I mean, we've had digital in our strategic plan for, I don't know, 5 years. And we kind of dipped our toe in it a little bit and kind of pretended we were doing it. And then suddenly we were pushed off a cliff and kind of had to do it. And it's sticking with us. But one of the things that we've talked about is figuring out different channels of how we deliver our product to people. And one of those is going to be digital. And I agree with you, Drew. goodness gracious, live performance. I can't wait to see my first live performance. I am like so ready. And, but, you know, trying to figure out the ways that those other mediums can be effective, can, you know, transform people's lives, bring things to them. And so that's what we're doing, is looking at all of the different ways, smaller performances, things that will be adjunct to our, I guess, our main work, which I think probably over time it'll shift a little bit to what we're doing. I will just say that technology, I never thought that I would become such a good video editor. Who knew?
But that actually is a question of mine, because as we have pivoted to digital work, after each project, we have thought to ourselves, oh, I wish we had known X going in. So what are the things that you learned during this time that you never thought you might need to know?
I wish I had worked at PBS before.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I feel like whether it's a fundraiser or again on a digital platform, like it's back to the classic things we've all witnessed on PBS, and those guys have it mastered. Like content, pledge breaks, video platform, length of platform, what they're doing and delivering.
Right. Lighting. Oh my God, it's huge.
You know,
it is. And how do you light white hair? It's really a pain in the butt.
But I mean, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's one of those things that you're kind of looking at and going, Nashville Children's Theater is now in, because of our online classes, 11 to 14 states, 4 to 5 countries. It's kind of this crazy thing that you also kind of go like, or I think on my level going, you know, I'm active in the international TYA scene. And so many times it's been me arriving in a country and participating in something and talking about Nashville Children's Theater. And now the work is speaking for itself. And, I don't need to show up to India. The work can. And so how exciting that is to feel like someone is involved with our organization in its truest central form.
Yeah, it's motivated us to put together our smaller touring companies to get out there, because the videos that we've done of our educational outreach is great, but there's still no substitute to actually making eye contact with your audience and being in that space. So we're sending our videos out there, but hopefully they will act as ambassadors to our work that we'll be able to follow. But we're looking at doing more touring, more smaller, again, it's a reversion to old ways of how did theater happen across the countryside, even American history, when you look at the way Shakespeare traveled across the country during the gold rush, even, that I love that, just to be inspired that if it worked then, it's all, when it gets down to live performing arts, it's human to human. And it's really, really important that we do keep that connection.
Here. Who's got another question? Anybody else have a question that they'd like to share?
How about, which pandemic word are you ready to never have to say again? Mine is pivot. So
Pivot.
Pivot.
Well, I'm trying to find what the thesaurus word for pivot. Transition. Is everyone going to say That's not the right word.
I don't want to ever have to say quarantine again.
I'm going to say protocols.
Yeah. I'll throw one out here. With the anticipation that Broadway and theaters across the country will reopen, we had discussion months ago surrounding sort of public opinion regarding in-person theatrical gatherings. What are you hearing from your audiences about the need and or the want to come back into the theater?
I think our audiences are ready to return, and I think they're going to be more ready to return than we are. And I only say that in terms of we can keep our audiences safe easier than we can keep our artists safe as we produce. So we have to get that part right as we return.
That's right. So true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of "we're ready, we can't wait." As we slowly and surely start to make announcements about what we're doing this summer, people seem to be really champing at the bit.
Well, in Music City right now, we're going to have conferences, or right now the Visitors Bureau has said conferences of up to 3,000 people. So as soon as I read that Facebook post, I went, so I think a theater event for 200 is safe.
Yeah.
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 Well, and I think that's it. How we all figured that out, that we can do what we did before, or the numbers we're about to do. And for the length of time that we're going to have to do it, because I think that's the new thing. Now we're all rediscovering, okay, in a way, I feel like I'm budgeting what I do for the very young and the baby theater stuff, but for the main stage, right? Like that was capped at 100 bodies. Now that we're capped at certain things, how can we bring what we did once before to the same amount of people but longer? Or I'm looking at one of the first big productions that we bring back to the theater running 10 weeks,
right?
Because I'm even like, hey, can I even get half the school audience as I used to,
Right,
but in a longer amount of time? And is that the adequate amount of time that public will come, as we all kind of figure out the new Da Vinci Code of how to go forward?
Well, I want to throw a big shout out to our partner, Jennifer Turner, here, because she's enabling us to move from the smaller theater, the Johnson Theater at TPAC, into the larger theater at the Polk, and enable us to serve the same amount of people in a safe way. So thank you, Jennifer.
yeah, way to go.
I think we want to get everybody back, and it's going to look a little different for every company. Broadway needs to come back at 100%. So that's what we're preparing for in the fall. But I think, we have the opportunity to serve different audiences at different capacities and be creative how we create those performance experiences. And they want to come back. We've been doing surveys almost every couple of weeks during this whole pandemic, and you can see the enthusiasm is returning. The spend is going to return. I think that they are looking for health protocols, which is why we're grateful that we have HCA Healthcare TriStar Health as our healthcare partner. That's going to give our audiences a lot more confidence that they're coming into a safe environment. That's really important to us. But I think they're ready. I think they're ready to come back.
Yeah, I want to also say congratulations to Jennifer, because Studio Tenn and TPAC partnered on these cabaret on stage, an intimate evening with Susan Egan and Adam Pascal and Brandon and James and Shoshana Bean and Norm Lewis, one a month, and they sold out in 90 minutes. There they are. So that was really great. And it was such a joy. And Jennifer had this wonderful idea because we're in the Polk Theater as well, but we're going to put, and it's all socially distanced, perfect, just a certain amount, the audience on the stage. So the audience will actually get to be on stage to see the performer, which is really kind of great. So thank you, Jennifer, too.
Oh, we're looking forward to it. We can't wait to have live audience back.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Let's send them too. Questions? Well, thank you. That's the show, everyone.
I have a question. I'm anxious to hear Ernie's third post-it.
Well, I'm just wondering if we're all ready for COVID material. Like, if you think about history and history-inspiring great works of art, if we think about Laramie Project or Come From Away, like, are we all ready to prepare ourselves to experience what we just have in an artistic way?
Gosh, I really think we're going to have a little time of celebration and letting it go, and then maybe in a year, like maybe after next year, maybe after 6 months or so, it's all going to start pouring out. That's what I feel. I know that our our patrons really want us to do something that's just happy and moves, right? We're doing, we have our first live performance in over a year. We're going to Ascend, actually, May 14 and 15, which is really exciting. The artists, the company dancers are just over the moon excited about getting in front of people again. So wish us luck. We have lots of protocols and all the way around, but we're just incredibly excited to get out there. But I think, it's all going to be, I think a lot of it's going to come out, just like you said, and we'll have, I bet we'll have trouble balancing our work with the COVID work and the times of the pandemic. Mm-hmm. I bet you we will. Yeah.
It was interesting too, Ernie. I mean, I was in New York City during the AIDS, epidemic, and shows came out pretty fast. I mean, Normal Heart was playing at the public pretty quickly, and then As Is followed, and it was happening while it was going on. I think this is different, but it will be interesting to see what kind of work turns out. But I agree with you, Paul. So a celebration might be really nice.
We're about to announce we're celebrating outside with I can't give anything away right now, but a barnyard story that some people may think is sad, performed in an actual barn.
Oh, cool.
Oh, that's great.
And whereas I think some people might find it sad, I actually find it a celebration of life and life cycle.
That's great. Love that.
That's really exciting, Ernie. That's so exciting.
So hopefully, yeah.
I have seen some. I have not watched a lot of online performance, but what I have seen has been dance, and it has been COVID, like dealing with it in the moment, that I have found really moving and beautiful and helpful as we process isolation. So I feel like, if anything, Zoom art is about the isolation that we have been suffering. So once we're all back together, I think we need to celebrate togetherness. But I do have to say that as I was directing Romeo and Juliet in January, the lines about a plague on both your houses and the idea that Friar John was delayed because of a quarantine, and that's the whole reason that Romeo didn't get the message. Things certainly about the way humans have dealt with this situation in the past do become more relevant and so much more meaningful.
I think we have some questions from outside that want to come in. What do we have, William? So Sean Martin says, I've been wondering, as we think through what we, the audience, community, etc., all need coming out of a time like this, how you balance the need both for healing and processing, but also just escape entertainment.
Since we're in the middle of our strategic planning process right now, we've been holding a lot of roundtable discussions with our audience members. And I will say that we should never underestimate the Nashville audience's appetite for new and challenging and exciting work. And I don't think that means that escapist means we have to shy away from challenging work.
I think the best works of art can be entertaining and ask questions at the same time, right? It doesn't have to be these two separate things, and it's all about how the audience member is ready or wants to approach the work at the time that they see it, right? Mm-hmm. If the best ones, you can go in and be entertained and leave asking questions at the same time. I think that's what I strive to put on stage as much as I can. So I think everybody does. Mm-hmm.
I agree, Paul. It can absolutely be both. And, experiencing stories can be healing. You learn more about yourself, you learn about the community you live in, you learn about others' struggles, but there's also a sense of hope that comes out of those stories. And I think that we're all looking for that hope, and the vaccines and the path forward has given us hope. And so I'm looking forward to seeing some hope in my art.
Mm-hmm. We have another question, William? The Studio Tenn. A question from our text community. Nashville has so many college students studying MT acting out of state. So I would love to see season auditions take place over winter break in early January. Any chance of that in the future? I actually like that idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I think it's really good. There's so many people that don't get to come in and could at that time would be wonderful. I just want to get to a casting session. I haven't had one yet. I can't wait to have a casting. I'm looking forward to that as much as I am doing a show.
Well, because we were so optimistic last year and thought the pandemic might hopefully be a 2-month event rather than an 18-month event, we did have our season auditions, and we did them all by video last year.
Oh,
and
that's right.
That
Yeah, you said that.
really provided a lot of access. I enjoyed that a lot.
I mean, all of us in the dance world are figuring out how to do auditions again over a different way. I mean, we have not been able to do auditions live. Normally, we would go to New York, and people would be coming here constantly. The company, which has been working, has been, they're sequestered and have been in their own little bubble. So we obviously can't have people in there, and we're having to hire people by looking at videos, talking to them, getting to know them even better, which is a good thing, I think.
Totally.
So we really had to rethink the way we're hiring people. I think it's good too.
It's really tricky. We just had 490 people audition for our summer shows via video, and that's just a lot of videos to watch.
Oh.
It's a lot. And I had to, I mean, I'm not, I had to figure out that I initially thought the spreadsheet would be, and I can just check these boxes. Well, when the spreadsheet got over 350, and I was like, I don't think I have enough detail in the spreadsheet to remember all of these people. It's a whole new process for us. And I can't wait to go back to live auditions again, because it's just, again, it's all about live performance. It's about interaction.
That's right.
Got to be there.
Yeah, Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Paul, you were able to get people back in the studio so quickly. I really admired how you were able to get your dancers back in the studio and get your school started. Maybe you could tell everyone how early you got in there and how you did that. That was really remarkable.
Well, I mean, the board, actually, when we were going through all of this, we had a task force that many members of our board were on, and really they committed, like, number one, to keep the artists working as much as possible. And they really just got behind that. And obviously it wasn't the same amount that we normally would be able to do, but they were just committed to doing it, sort of number one on the list. So and then through PPP and things, we were able to keep them going through the end of last season. Ballet companies usually work on a period of weeks over the year. So our company normally does about 37 weeks, and we had to cut it down to in the low 30s. And so we were able to come back, and we had things to do, one of which was this big Nutcracker film. And we were just able to kind of cobble together, for lack of a better word, work for them over the whole year. And obviously they're incredibly grateful and happy to be in the studio with each other. We worked in pods, rehearsal pods. So we had, that's why protocols, these little groups around the building, and we're really lucky enough to have a big enough building with small groups of people. The company was divided into 3, and they never actually met. And I choreographed a whole ballet actually over Zoom imagine if you were putting together a jigsaw puzzle and the pieces were all in different rooms, and you were looking at them through video and saying, okay, I think you're going to go there. I think you're going to go there. It was skill testing, but again, it was all worth it because of getting them to be able to work. And that's really says a lot about the Nashville Ballet Board of Directors.
I want to say something to you too about that, Paul. But first, guys, we had a lot of people that joined us late, and they're all like fascinated and listening. Tell hello, thank you. Tell everybody who you are and who you represent. I'm Patrick Cassidy. I represent Studio Tenn. Paul?
Paul Vasterling, Nashville Ballet.
Drew?
Drew Ogle, Nashville Repertory Theater.
Ernie?
Ernie Nolan, Nashville Children's Theater.
Denice?
Denice Hicks, Nashville Shakespeare Festival.
And Jennifer?
Jennifer Turner, Tennessee Performing Arts Center.
That question, who you represent, is so deep versus like the institution we work at. Did anybody
Yeah, I got this note that just slipped to me. I want to comment on what you said, Paul, because Melissa, my wife, is a teacher at Nashville Ballet, the school, and how you kept the school going too. And she talked about the same thing with the pods, and she would be teaching, a limited amount of students in one room while she was Zooming with another amount of students in another room. And
I would give a shout out to our amazing faculty who pivoted about 10 times. And, every week there were some live, some not live, all virtual. Yeah, they were really amazing to keep it going.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ernie, do you have another question?
No, we went through my Post-it.
Denice, do you have a question?
I do. I have a question. Did you all know, this is a question. Did you all know that in 2024, which is 3 years from now, Nashville will be celebrating the 200th anniversary of being named the Athens of the South? So it was 1824 when Dr. Lindsley started colleges here and decided we were going to be like the center of education and be the Athens of he called it Southwest, I think. Dr. Lindsley, who is, the namesake of the Lindsley Avenue Church that Tony McAllister and Lynn McAllister attend, and it's a beautiful place. But so that's the guy, 200 years ago, 2024, who called us the Athens of the South. And I think that we should all celebrate that in Grecian ways. So my question is, what would you do if you were going to celebrate being called the Athens of the South? What would you do?
Sounds like my old toga parties back in the 80s.
Well, I think there's something I think there's something beautifully celebratory to not only the arts, but to academia and just thinking. I mean, I just think celebrating putting pieces out that make us think and feel and unpack. I mean, that's what we all do. We produce things that we hope our audiences experience and then are unpacking either at a bar or a restaurant or the car ride home. A family is unpacking what they've just seen. I mean, we all do with the people we see shows at one another's theaters where we totally unpack what we've just witnessed and how beautiful or how inspired we are by what we've just seen. So I think that idea of encouraging us all, how are we continuing the legacy of the Athens of the South in terms of what is the Athens of the South in 2024, I think is really exciting. What are we doing to really foster that thought?
Yeah, the education, as I was reading the Hellenic Cultural Diplomacy Institute USA, that's has a branch that's based here, sent me some information about it because they're really excited about celebrating with us. And looking at the educational history of Nashville, the historically Black colleges that are still thriving here, like Fisk and TSU, was originally started, in the 1800s. Meharry, these wonderful, really strong African-American educational institutions are something to really be celebrated as well. So,
absolutely, 100%, 100%. I think we have two more questions, or one at a time. Galen Fott, during the pandemic, there have been a lot of efforts to create Zoom theater experiences. Have the panelists seen any of these efforts that they feel validate Zoom as a viable medium for live theatrical presentation going forward beyond the pandemic? Or has it all just been a poor substitute for all in the same room theater?
I have seen some Zoom theater that has really taken advantage of the interactive nature of the medium to create something new. And I have also seen Zoom theater used very effectively to introduce young people to the theater who may never have set foot in our doors otherwise.
I think they're different experiences, you know? Like, I even have to say, the old Vic broadcast, if you bought a ticket to see their adaptation, Jack Thorne's adaptation of Christmas Carol, you actually logged into a Zoom call with many people at that performance. It wasn't on a different streaming platform. And that was revelatory, but different. That was filming live people that you knew were live, and it was Christmas Carol and the adaptation. And, you know, after a couple of glasses of Chardonnay, you're going to cry at anything. So, you know, that was revelatory. But, you know, Zoom is something so different. That there have been a lot of really interesting children's programming on Zoom, and children's programming that also contacts adults to plant things around so the child has. It's a different experience. Yeah. It's also really cool. That will probably go on and go on to be its own thing. I don't think it'll be what all of us love to do in the moment, as we've talked about.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's nothing that beats the live experience. The audience is such a part, as we know, of our show.
Also, we had this experience. We did our first Zoom performance, not Zoom performance, but digital performance in November. It got released, and we actually shot it like where we did it live at different takes and things in the studios. And after it was over, we released it, and it was, it looked great, but the company came to us and said, we really are missing the idea that this one time only in the moment kind of performance. So in order to fix that, what we did for the last one, the one that just happened in February, is we got a bunch of our supporters to Zoom in. And I wish you guys could have been in the room with the dancers. It was like opening night. It almost made me cry. They were so excited about the fact that people were there in that moment, and they could only do it that one time. And it was that one time. That's the beauty of what we do, right? It's this utter spontaneity that has to happen, and they have to make it work. And it was really a beautiful moment, and we knew, and the performance was so much better than what we did the time before. Like Ernie's saying, it's a completely different experience with dance. Particularly, I've seen some really good ones because you can become way more. It's much more intimate because the camera can go places that you can't really go. But there isn't that energy exchange. Yeah. It's a trade-off,
And even beyond camera, it's like viewing party, right? It's so different when you're like in your living room by yourself, the blanket's on you, you're watching something solo, versus all those people you're watching with. Or like, do you see what's happening while I'm watching it? Or even the recognition of a community watching something, It's so kind of different than just finding a recording. Because even attributed to the Athens to the South stuff, Abe and I have done a ton of Greek theater watching during COVID. I mean, talk about pandemics like Oedipus and Agony, Medea. We've returned to the roots, And it's just been so funny how topical that work feels, but also very different when even it's two of us to talk about versus a whole audience experience something together, so that several hundred people have just seen someone pluck out their eyes or lose their child or any of those things. I mean, that's the golden moment we all kind of sit and wait to experience together,
I am grateful we had it. I agree, but I'm grateful because I don't know what we would have done without it. It just would have been a different pandemic. At least it brought us a little bit closer together, and we were able to still reach some audiences and still, keep the arts going. At the first week of the pandemic, we started having our staff meetings on a conference call. And I don't know if we hadn't moved to Zoom. I don't know how we would have gotten through the year. I mean, I definitely am looking forward to the day when we can, get off of it, but I am very grateful that we've had this tool to give us at least some connection during this time.
Oh, and again, when you stop the creative element of live theater and you're forced into a box to create in a different way, I look at that as a great thing. I mean, we didn't have a place to hold an education program. This became our place to hold classes, dance and summer camps and singing, and it literally became a place to connect to kids and give kids lessons. And I'm really grateful for that for us.
Are there any other changes that people feel are necessary at this time or going forward? Are there institutional or, I don't know, any sort of other structural change that people feel are necessary to move forward with?
But yeah, I mean, I think Ernie, this has been just an incredible opportunity, at least for our organization, to re-examine. I mean, we're the same with Drew. We're in strategic planning. We have a diversity, inclusion, access, and equity staff committee that is meeting regularly to talk about, how we can change our organization for the better moving forward. I mean, I do think that we are trying to be more efficient so that we are, maintaining our resources moving forward. I think this next year, even though audiences are ready to come back, I still think it's going to be a tough year. I think we're still in recovery. I mean, we're still going to be in a place where it's going to take a while to get our organizations back to where they were before the pandemic. So I do think that we're learning to be more efficient. We're learning to value our resources. We are, grateful for the support of the donors that I know have been so important to all of us, and the oversight and support and advocacy from our board of directors, which I know has been greatly supportive of all our organizations. And so I think those things we're definitely going to take with us into whatever this new normal is going to be.
Jennifer, you alluded to conserving resources, and it's going to be much more expensive to do what we do when we come back. And I'm curious to ask the group if you've been able to quantify how much more expensive, and more importantly, how do you protect the art when you've got such financial pressure?
Oh, is that a deep question? Wow.
Waited an hour in, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it's so interesting because I think it's equating art with what you spend towards it versus what it is. And I think that's what's so interesting. Or I guess, I immediately run to Drew. Like, I've sat on the floor of a preschool in Denmark and sobbed along with a bunch of 18-month-old babies as they've had their first theater experience. And I go, man, it was the experience and the quality of what people put forward. I didn't think about. Yeah. So it was that. It was that thing.
Gosh.
So I just go, hey, what we do costs money, and so there's that. At the same time, are we going back or thinking of ways to maintain sustainability at this time and place? Also, as the culture around us changes, there's about to be a march on Broadway in terms of representation and transparency. And I think we're about to experience a lot of change in those areas. And so, yeah, that's what I was thinking on that.
And I think you can also, our plan is to start small. And to start with just great, like Ernie was, you can put in a black box theater and not have to have all the big flashy production sets and production costumes, and have two people on the stage that are tremendous actors and a great story, and that's going to be really entertaining. And if we can, put a dollar amount on that, it's going to be a lot less than, coming back at full swing. It's going to be a gradual process, but good story and good performance is.
Yeah. Can I just add that I think all of us here probably have been doing what you're describing for years. I've been with the ballet for a long time and kind of built it up from doing as small as we have to do. and try to be creative. I know all of you guys have done this. I mean, we do what we have to do and put the art forward and the best thing forward. And like Ernie is saying, it's not necessarily about what you spend, although if you have resources, it helps you to, do certain things that you might not be able to do. And of course, we all have dreams, but I think the great thing about this is the big takeaway for all of our organization is this ability to pivot and the ability to be creative in the moment and figure it out. I mean, that's the essence of who we're supposed to be, in my opinion, is supposed to be, right? And I think every one of you guys here tonight have been doing that for years. So I don't think it's going to be challenging, of course, but it's also going to be exciting.
I want to take one or two more questions, and I have two. I think I prepped you guys. I have two games that we play on the show that I want to throw your way. But first, what? Give me a quick. Okay. Oh, this is from Jeff Ellis. Hey, Jeff. Thank you so much. Last week, I watched. What did you? So good. You read.
Jeff Ellis is watching.
Yeah. He was on the show too. I was excited and nervous. Go ahead, Denice. You read the question.
Last week I watched a documentary about Berlin in 1945, and something that struck me was the story of how the arts became reinvigorated and a part of the recovery from the war years. In fact, within a month of the end of the war, there was theater and concerts, and people who were starving and worried about finding a place to live were actually starved for the arts. I believe that speaks to the tenor of these times. Do you believe it is possible that audiences are now so starved for live performance and the magic of live theater that when performances come back to Nashville, that we may see a more supportive, more demanding audience?
Yeah, I do. I
do. Nashville Children's Theater started in 1931 out of the Great Depression and the need to serve children out of the Great Depression. The whole reason why we have a school matinee program was to help in the desegregation of Nashville schools and bring white and black students together in one place. And so the city has fostered that for this long. And so I say, hey, what are the parties that we're all going to throw for everyone to come into our theaters to experience what they need to and want to experience?
I think so for sure. The responses that we've gotten from our partnership with Kenny Playhouse Theater have been enthusiastic nationwide. So they're already, the Element Hotel, which is adjacent to the One City Yard where we perform, is already 95% booked during our festival, which nice. I feel like is a really, really good sign that people will be staying there and experiencing both August Wilson and Shakespeare in the same space. There is definitely a resurgence happening.
I have one question. This could be a long question, so I don't want it to be too long. But what do you think equity is going to do? What do you think equity's position is going to do, let's say, come the fall?
I think it's going to be a different organization because I think it needs to be. And I think they're on a journey of development on their own. But I think also that commercial for-profit theater in New York City is not what is happening necessarily outside of that spectrum. And I don't think it's a one-stop shop and a one-stop place for rules.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Drew?
Equity's primary responsibility is to get their people back to work. And so I do think we'll continue to see adjustments there. And to what Ernie said, their members are demanding some more attention, especially here at the regional level. And so I do think we'll see that as well.
Yeah, I have many friends on different boards that are negotiating like around the clock. They are, and you're right, on the regional level, literally, I was talking to my friend Dee Hody, and she says, you have no idea how much we're in negotiations every day.
Everybody wants to come back to work.
Right.
We all do.
Right.
Well, I think on top of coming back to work, it's then how can we sustain or manage what we did previously? And even we're where we were something that's going to help our organization move forward. So I think we're all in a very reflective place in terms of embracing the union. I still have my card that I got. Like, I totally understand that. I think it's like, how can we move forward, and are we all in that sort of like, hey, we're in a new world order mentality, you know?
But I do think one of the blessings of being in the Nashville market is that we have a tremendous talent base of actors who are equity members, and we have a tremendous talent base of actors who are not. And we have the freedom to use both here in Nashville, and I think that's a blessing.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, with affordable housing the way it is, I feel like we have to pay more. We are losing actors to more remunerative work, and that's something that I continue. Some of my very favorite actors are not auditioning anymore because they have moved on to other work, and that's alarming.
And that happened, in New York too. I can't tell you how many actors left New York City. Really talented actors to say, I got to go do something else. And I hope that comes back. We had one question that we were flashing on, then I want to get to this games. Oh, Mary Beth Richards. Do you, the 6 organizations you represent, hope to continue to collaborate amongst yourselves going forward? I have to answer this question. You all know this. I've made it very transparent. I so want to collaborate with you guys. I mean, Paul and I have talked about something for 222. Jennifer and I are collaborating right now. And I said it. I spoke to Drew about it today. I've spoken to Ernie about it many times. And Denice, I'd love to play King Lear. Can I do that?
I'm gonna wait a few years, young man.
But yeah, I mean, I want to collaborate with you guys. At the end of the day, this is what I believe. I talk about it with our board. I talk about it with our staff. Theater is collaborative. It's collaborative. We all come together. And I'm so excited about being in Tennessee and about these these people that are artists, all of them. And why can't we all come together and produce art? Because that's what we've been doing, and that's what we're doing right now, and that's what we're talking about. So yeah, I'm on board for that any day with any of you.
It's been such a blessing to come out during this pandemic, the sense of community and support, not only here in Nashville between the arts organizations, but also, our sector nationally in Canada, and even the Tennessee theaters have come together. It's remarkable. I mean, and we've been supportive of each other, and we've had the time to really, I think, get to know each other and try to find ways to help navigate this unprecedented crisis. Mm-hmm. Unprecedented is another word that I'd like to talk never say again.
So here's our first game, okay? It's called If I Ran Your Company. So what it is each of us, we're gonna take over at the helm of the company. What would be your first show? So Paul, I'm gonna start with you.
Oh my God.
If you ran Studio Tenn, what would be your first show?
My first show, would be Into the Woods.
Good answer.
Wait, you have to say why, Paul. You have to say why.
Why? It's my favorite one. I don't know. Yeah, it's all about me, right? So, I think it's a great show. It's a work of genius. I don't know.
I agree. It's a great one. And on my post-it, it just happens to be, no, it's not our first day. Okay, Jennifer Turner, if you ran Nashville Shakes, what would be the first show?
Midsummer, and I would do it outdoors in Centennial Park.
Well done.
Brilliant.
Drew Ogle, if you ran Nashville Ballet, what would be their first show?
Nashville Ballet. I would do what Paul does so well and create with a Nashville musician to tell a story of the time that we are in now of social justice and racial reckoning.
Well done. Well said. Ernie Nolan, if you ran the Nashville Rep, what would be their first show?
I'm selfishly going to say La Cage aux Folles because there's a Georges and Albin running around town, and they're ready to take their act from the kitchen and put it on stage.
Well said. Denice Hicks, if you ran the Children's Theater, what would be their first show?
Oh my goodness. I have loved the newly commissioned works that Ernie has been doing. Return to Center being one of those. But I would and Ghost I thought was awesome. So I would go in that direction. And there is a book by Jason Reynolds called Long Way Down. I would have that commissioned and do that one. And it's also, I wrote to him after I read that book and said, this is a modern telling of Hamlet. So there's a parallel storyline there. I would figure out a way to collaborate Shakespeare Festival and Children's Theater with that commissioned production.
And if I ran TPAC, Jennifer, my first show would be The Music Man starring Norm Lewis. I would put him in the lead.
Good choice.
And he's going to appear for us in September. So let's think about it.
September 4th. You can talk to him then.
Yes. Guys, this has been an exceptional show. Do we have any other? Oh, I'm going to because we have an audience, and you guys can hear them. We have one more question for you. Okay, throw that question up there then, William. Oh, Jennifer! Jennifer is here. She's performed for us. She's been on this show. Earlier this pandemic, some of the companies chose to make BLM statements of solidarity. How do you plan to uphold your stance at your theater?
Jennifer, at the Rep, we spent a lot of time working on this. Our staff has gone through a 30-lesson curriculum. Our board has undergone training at their retreat. We've got a board and staff level a committee that works on this. And the guiding question that we're putting is in every major process and every major program, how does our commitment to racial equity play out? And we're building that into the process.
I'll go. This is almost like a whole other show. This question, right? And a whole nother discussion. We're one of the companies that put out a statement like that, and we are committed to seeing through with the change that is happening in the ballet world. I mean, and it's a very complicated and there are so many facets to what when you talk about the art form of ballet and what it means, what it looks like, and we are working on our board there's a DEI committee to the board now. That means that it happens all the time, and the goal, and I'll just try to be short, the goal is that everything we do is we organically think about how we are approaching DEI. That we don't have to put it there as a separate thing, but it is infused in everything that we do.
Our diversity statement will be read at the beginning of every first rehearsal, along with a land recognition, and then the land recognition and other statements will be made before every performance going forward.
Like Drew, our board is currently in strategic planning, and racial equity is at the core of that process. And as we continue forward, it's just always at the forefront of what we do. Are we serving the entire community? Are we actually accessible? Are we inclusive? So 2020 was a great time for us to really step back and look at what we said we were doing, and now we need to walk the walk. So that's got to be at the core of the actual strategic plan of the company, which it is now, and I'm excited about that.
I'm just putting this out there as an invitation to Jennifer and all of the artists of color in Nashville. I want to be held to the things that we're saying today. I want to be held accountable.
Yeah,
Our
and go ahead, Jen. Sorry.
Oh, we have a staff committee that is led by staff, but we have a board committee, our education and community engagement oversees their work. And just like Paul and Denice talked about it being sort of at the core of everything we do, the staff committee is split into 5 subcommittees so that we cover every area of the organization. We look at it through our policies, through our patrons, our community, through our training lens. And then finally, we have a governance subcommittee that talks about how we hold ourselves accountable and then how we continue to advance the work. So it's been a great opportunity for us to really, like you've all said, reflect and see what we can do better. And for some of us, we had a long way to go in some of those areas, but we're doing it. We're making progress.
I think the word, and for us, it's accountability. It starts with our board. It goes into our staff. And it goes through every aspect of our company. Not just when we go back to casting, but how do we get people on our board that think this way? How do we get people on our staff? How can we constantly diversify and constantly get underneath, what has to change?
Well, and I also think it starts with us as leaders. I mean, everyone here is dedicated to it, but it also starts with us. I mean, we're the leaders of these organizations. And so as we talk to the board and as we also collaborate with each other and collaborate with other artists, it starts with our own commitment to push the work forward.
We are also all white. And so I think it's really important that we have decision makers of color working alongside us and with us, not just for us.
Right.
Absolutely.
Here. You guys are remarkable. I want to give one question to the audience here, because like I said, it's so incredible that we actually have people here. Have you heard them cheering and clapping?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
They are amazing. So I need somebody who's got a nice big voice to just yell out one question. Okay, back there. It's been a really difficult year to be creative. How have we all been creative in this year, in terms of what we've gone through? Well, this show is part of it. I mean, for us, for Studio Tenn, this show was a way of reaching out and connecting with people, and for me personally, getting to know so many of, like I stated earlier, you guys, starting with you guys. So, and again, we did a musical theater contest that sort of garnered all these other things, where we had kids, 150 videos I looked at, Denice, but submitted things that they were doing with their families. Kids that didn't get to perform in their school show, musical, that got to do that song that got them the part and stuff like that. So that was what we did creatively.
If it makes anybody feel better, I was not creative in this year at all, like zero. I shut down. I heard people were saying, Shakespeare wrote King Lear during a pandemic. I'm like, well, I did. I was lucky to get out of bed. I was lucky if I could then get out of the shower, because that always felt good to just stay in there. I did a lot of not being creative, and I let myself, I just had to decide that was okay.
Oh, we've lost Patrick.
Oh no. We lost Patrick's audio.
Patrick, you're muted.
Temporarily muted.
I would say I celebrated every time I wasn't emailing or doing another Excel spreadsheet. So I have to say that I personally celebrated creative moments and was able to complete the new work that will hopefully welcome people back to Nashville Children's Theater next year. And we were able to workshop it with students from Belmont's musical theater program and do a concept recording in a studio. And so I celebrated that. because it wasn't an Excel spreadsheet.
And I would also challenge, you know, the creativity is not just the moment of creation, right? All of this time in the shower or waiting will come out of you at some point. That's what I believe. You know, the work that I did this year, which doesn't seem creative, is a thought ground for what's going to happen next. That's how I feel about it. I guess that's a Pollyanna look at it, but I really think that the thoughts that I had all of this time are going to be stored up and we will be put to use later, I think.
I think keeping organizations alive is creative.
Yeah.
For sure.
So like snaps to everybody.
For sure.
And I want to thank all of you so much for coming on here tonight and talking. It's so great to see all of you and hear your your ideas, what you've done, what we're going to do. I also want to thank everybody that's here tonight. I want to thank the Franklin Theater for allowing us to be here, and I want to thank my staff. My staff has been extraordinary during this last year, extraordinary, and as our there's three of us. Just three of us, and we put this up, and they do so much more. And I want to thank our board. Our board has been extraordinary. Sometimes, as you know, just getting to the end of the week and keeping the lights on was part of the deal, and it's been an amazing experience. And I'm so grateful for all of them, as I am all of you. Thank you for being here tonight, guys.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's so great to hang with everybody.
Good to see you all.
It is, and I will see you all soon. I know where you live. I know where you all
You're
live.
in this little box.
In this little box.
Thank you, guys. I'll see you
Thank
soon.
you very much.
Wow. And Ernie Nolan. So that is, guys, that's our show tonight. What a remarkable show. What a remarkable show. And I think a lot of stuff for us all to think about. I thank everybody for the questions, and particularly yours, Jennifer. It's really something that we all need to be accountable for, and we're working to get to there. Have you joined our text messaging community? If you haven't, please try it. Message us at 615-802-6642. Please join our text messaging community. We really want to hear from you, and it's great. This has been a joy for me, a joy for me to be here, like I said, and just to be here in Tennessee and a chance to do this. Thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next week. Who do we have next week? Oh, Lexa Vega. I'll tell you about her. She was in Spy Kids, and she's awesome. And we got to work together too. So join us next week, Monday night, 7 o'clock, Studio 10 Talks. I have no goodbye song tonight. So I'm just going to say thank you and good night.